today I will be investigating the silent toll on roadkill or on bird populations. This is a systematic review of 20 research articles, and I'll cover which birds are most, or which bird families are most affected, why roadkill collisions happen, the causes, and how we can mitigate the impact, and also to look at the continents that have conducted research on bird roadkill. So what's the significance of this review? So I just want us to take note that roadkill is often overlooked in wildlife conservation despite its large impact. So this studies was one of my subjects that I did in my second semester of my first year in my master's program. So it was a very short mini project that I had to do. So it's just a systematic review of the topic. So then what are roadkills? So roadkill refers to animals that are being killed by vehicles on roads. It's a common sight, yes, but one whose ecological impact is under-recognized. But today the focus is going to be on birds, even though it's a major issue affecting vertebrates. Yes, lots of vertebrates. So for instance, studies estimate hundreds of millions of birds are being killed on roads annually. At about 194 million birds per year alone in Europe has been recorded. Also, we have to note, and I know we all know that birds play important roles in our ecosystem, it being pollination, pest control, etc. So their loss would definitely bring about broader consequences if we don't, or if we do not act now. So this is going to convey that there's a real or a significant problem. That is why I termed it as a silent tool. So the justification for the need of this review. So species are declining as a result of urbanization. We know urbanization is just like the transition from a rural area to an urban area. So species are declining as a result of this, and this has led to the mortality of birds. Certain features that comes with this urbanization includes residences, as we can see here, power lines, wind turbines, communication towers, and buildings. And all of these structures leads to the decline of birds, one way or the other. However, there is roadkill that poses a silent threat to this wildlife species. So, yes, we need roads. Human populations keep increasing. And once the numbers keep increasing, then it's going to be the need or the request for better infrastructure, such as good roads in this case. I'm sure every citizen in every country asks for one thing or the other. And then one thing people normally ask for is for good roads because it facilitates it facilitates transportation of goods and services. It makes life easier for citizens. So yes, we can't deny the fact that we need these things. But then, in as much as we are looking at the development of these structures, we also need to look at the conservation aspect of it as well. So these roads, or the development of these roads has, on the other hand, led to significant roadkill of biodiversity across the world. That's becoming a very significant threat to wildlife, especially birds in this case. So roads create dangerous barriers for animals. As we can see, these roads are serving as they've fragmented the habitat of wildlife. So it's a significant. The result is a significant increase in roadkill incidents, as wildlife is being struck by vehicles when they attempt to cross the road. There are other factors that also come, not just crossing the road, but even the noises from these vehicles alters the behavior of some of these species. So where these wings meet wheels. So it is very evident that countries with long and improved roads have increased numbers of roadkill cases. And then most of these accidents are normally encountered by juveniles in dispersion. And this is very detrimental to the bird population. So some birds would prefer to nest very close to roadside, maybe because they find a place very suitable or they find some structures that gives them the suitability to, let's say, nest there. So if these eggs hatch into fledglings, obviously we know that once these birds are learning to fly, they are not going to be able to take off very high. So they have like higher chances of being knocked down by approaching vehicles, as well as even adult birds. So I say that in comparison to the natural world where predation occurs, vehicle collision, on the other hand, removes adult and healthy breeding birds, which tends to affect their populations. Also, increased adult and fledged mortality in roadside settings might also result in sink populations that are dependent on immigration to survive. So with this review, mine was to look at 4 questions. So I wanted to answer 4 research questions. So I wanted to look at the continents that have conducted research on roadkill involving birds. I wanted to also look at the families of birds that are most susceptible to roadkill. Also to look at the factors and causes that influence the severity of roadkill impact on bird populations. And then finally, to look at the effective mitigation measures that were proposed by the authors or the researchers to reduce incidence of bird roadkills. So what was the approach I used? The approach that I used, sorry. So I used the Prisma statement. What does Prisma statement do? So what it does is that it's designed to help systematic reviewers like myself to transparently report why the review was done, what the authors did, and what they found. So for me, I used 3 different search engines. So I use Scopus, I use Google Scholar, and then I use Web of Science. And the keywords that I used were birds and roadkill. So a total of 175 papers were found per the search. But I finally selected 20 papers for this review. The remaining articles were not factored in because the content of the papers were not directly focused on roadkill on birds, but other vertebrates and wildlife in general. Yes, I know birds are vertebrates, but as I mentioned from the beginning, it was a very short time for me to perform this exercise. So I just focused on papers that were like roadkill on birds. So that was why I just picked 20 out of 175. So again, what were some of the variables that I wanted to consider? So as I mentioned, I was looking at the causes of roadkill. I was looking at the studies across continents. I was looking at the bird families that were affected. I was looking at the proposed mitigation measures, the types of roads, the season. I was also looking at the type of survey that was used, whether they were driving to count some of these carcasses or it was just done by foot. So finally, the causes of roadkill, the continent where the studies was conducted, the proposed mitigation measures, and the bird families that were impacted were grouped and analyzed. So I mean, all these variables were examined in Excel to provide a comprehensive overview of the review conducted. So this is how the data analysis looks like. So as we can see, like from the very first one, we have like assessing patterns of bird roadkills in the high Andean Ecuadorian National Park. So obviously the continent was in South America, the vegetation type was grassland, the season was wet and dry. We could say the most affected bird species, the causes, the factors of roadkill. And here, even in this paper, they couldn't cite a mitigation measure for this. So this is how it goes through for all other ones that I did. We could also see from here, like the effect of infrastructure on the invasion of a journalist predator, pied crows in Southern Africa as a case study. So it was conducted in Africa. It was in a human settlement. The season was in autumn. The most affected species was corvidae, and then the causes continuous, and then the mitigation measures as well. So answering my questions or my research questions for this study, I wanted to look at the continents that have conducted research on bird roadkill. So where in the world? So we could see here that Europe, out of the 20 papers that Europe had conducted, or there were 7 articles from Europe, or 7 researches were conducted per my 20 papers. Same for South America. And then in North America, 3 papers. In Africa, it was 1. In Middle East, it was 1. In Australia, it was 1. In Asia, no. I mean, I found papers like that for dental items like vertebrates, but not directly on birds. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't have any study on that. So comparing my results to this, this was actually this is a comprehensive data set of roadkill locations. So it was this paper is by Grillo and Grillo et al. Yes. So it's a global roadkill data, and it's a data set on terrestrial vertebrate mortality caused by collision with vehicles. So here we could see the red points here showcase roadkill records. So the colors in gray, it's 0 records. The one in like light green is from 1 to 1,000. The next shade of green is like from 1,000 to 5,000. And then the deepest shade of green is from 5,000 to 40,000. So comparing this to the previous slide, we could see that most studies were not even conducted here. I mean, in Africa, there are few, like in South Africa, just as I mentioned, that there was 1 paper from there. We could also see that here, but we could see that there hasn't been much studies here. And then we could see that in Europe, yes, there's a lot. In North America, yes, there is. And then in South America, same. So same in Australia as well. And then there are studies, obviously, in Asia. So a comprehensive data set like this is essential to evaluate the factors contributing to roadkill risk and to enhance comprehension of its impacts on wildlife populations and socioeconomic dimensions. So they undertook this compilation of roadkill records, which encompasses both published and unpublished data that was gathered from road surveys or opportunistic sources. So this global roadkill data includes about 208,570,000 roadkill records of terrestrial vertebrates from 54 countries across the 6 continents we have. And this was collected between 1971 and 2024. So the next question that I also wanted to look at was the bird families that were most susceptible to roadkill, so the avian victims. So here we could see that the bird species belonging to the family Titonidae was the most affected or the most susceptible bird family. And then we also look at the causes and the factors. So why do birds get hit? So these were the list of the causes that I gathered from the papers that I reviewed. Traffic volume and speed of vehicles, the season, scavenger feeding habits. So sometimes I'm sure we all see that some of these bird species would feed on dead animals, or dead animals, or animals that were already killed. It could be mammals, it could be insects, it could be even other birds. So that's just it. And then habitat preference by roadside. I mentioned earlier that some birds would prefer to live close to the road, maybe because of its suitability. Time of day. So we know we have birds that are active at night, and we have those that are also active during the day. Migration patterns, breeding season of these birds, low flying patterns, and then those that fly over the road during feeding. So from here, we could see that the most occurred the most occurred cause of roadkill was traffic volume and speed of vehicles. And then we also want to look at the mitigation measures that were proposed by this author. So what works? This were what they thought would work to limit this roadkill. Yes, so installation of road signs, reduction of vehicular traffic and speed limit, elimination and management of roadside vegetation, removal of roadkill carcasses from roads so it doesn't attract other bird species to the road, creation of special patches for birds along this vegetation. Some also suggested that bushy vegetation should be removed or maintained. Also to plant tall trees near the roads for higher elevation so that these birds do not fly at a lower rate to be killed by approaching vehicles, to reduce rodent populations near major roads. I'm sure we all know, or I mean, I have observed that most of these pastures or agricultural fields are normally located close to highways. And most agricultural fields invite rodents. So when there are rodents, of course, there are going to be, since we are talking about birds, there are going to be raptors that are going to be around to prey on them. So if it's during the day, yes, we are going to find bird species that are going to feed on them during the day. And obviously at night, we are also going to find those that are going to prey on them as well. So they were proposing that they reduce rodent populations near major roads, and then also to make telegraph poles inhospitable for nesting, and also to regulate the hours of activity for large trucks that use these highways. So we could see that installation of roads, reduction of vehicular traffic and speed limit, and also elimination and management of roadside vegetations were the most proposed mitigation measures. So with this, it's still just part of the data analysis, but I just want to focus on the number of carcasses here, that we could see that some of these numbers are in thousands, others are in 2000s. I mean, I worked on roadkills on herpetofauna for my dissertation for my bachelor's. So I remember when we were being asked to, I mean, the broader topic was to work on roadkills. So it was interesting to me to work on roadkills, but I was working together with two other students, and we had opportunity to choose between mammals, to choose between herpetofauna, and to choose between birds. So I deliberately didn't go for birds. So I wanted to go for either mammals or herpetofauna because I already had idea that especially my continent, people have strong aversion for snakes because of a lot of superstition here and there. So, I mean, drivers would intentionally kill snakes or, I mean, reptiles in general. And mammals, I mean, we normally see them being hit by cars. But I just had no idea. I never thought that birds were also likely to be killed by roadkills. And then, I mean, we also had like a very shorter time to collect this data. So I was like, no, I don't think I'm going to work on birds, but here I am today, doing a systematic review on them. So these numbers are really alarming to me because some of these studies were just carried out within a month, some less than 6 months, and some were also carried within a year. But I just want us to take notes of the number of carcasses here. So what were the key findings to this review? So Europe has one of the greatest road densities in the world, with half of the continent currently having about 1.5 kilometers of paved roads and roadways or railroads. So increased traffic volume obviously increases the number of roadkills on the road, which raises the risk of animal collisions with automobiles. So just as I mentioned, roads serves as barriers. I mean, they've been created, yes, but they fragment these habitats or the habitat of wildlife. So they obstruct their normal migration patterns, and they also increase car-human collisions or interactions as well. So we could also see that looking at the families that were susceptible to roadkill, we realized that the Tritonidae and Strigidae families, which belong to the other Strigiformes, exhibited higher numbers of roadkill species due to their low wing loading. So this was from the researchers. So this makes them more susceptible to being hit by passing vehicles or swept onto the road by air pressure created by trucks. And also, we know that owls and nightjars are also susceptible to being killed by approaching vehicles on the road because of their feeding behavior. So we know that insects like these are drawn to the light that is emitted by moving vehicles or approaching vehicles on the road. And this obviously attracts them to vehicles. So as a consequence of this, these birds are now drawn to the insects. And if the cars are driving at a higher speed, the chances of they being killed is very high. So we could see that this guy here is just contemplating whether to go for the rodents. I mean, I don't know what it's thinking, but now it has to go for this rodent, but there's a car approaching. So just as I mentioned, it has to make the decision of going for it, or maybe if the car passes after it would go, but who knows, maybe after this car leaves, this rodent is going to leave. It might miss its meal for the day. So now we have to coexist with these animals because I think we have taken more from them than we should. So now we just have to coexist with them. So some of these one of the most frequently suggested effective measures was also to look at installation of road signs. And then they believe that this would increase driver awareness and also alert them to the presence of wildlife in certain areas. So they come in the form of warning signs, animal crossing signs, seasonal signage, and others. So what's the toll or what's the road ahead for this? Vehicle collisions have been shown to increase the overall strain on wildlife vertebrate assemblages, which alters the relative abundance of species, among other effects that I've mentioned earlier. So what do we have to do now? Educational campaigns and awareness for drivers with the installation of road signs about the incidence of roadkill on birds on respective routes. I have seen most of these road signs for mammals, but I haven't yet seen one for birds. I'm sure there are. I haven't seen. And also to reduce speed limits would also help in the conservation of these species that generally fall victim to vehicular traffic on roads. So as new routes are constructed, mitigation measures and funds could be used to sponsor this research as addressing the effect of new routes on avifauna. Just as I mentioned, we can't say new routes are not going to be constructed. They are going to be constructed day in and day out. They are going to be maintained. So we have to just understand that part, that mitigation measures and funds should be used to sponsor research addressing such issues like this. So what are the research gaps from this? We could see that few studies on roadkill were conducted in Africa and Middle East from the papers that I reviewed. But then I think it should be ongoing, or it should start, because we have roads in Africa as well, and new roads are being constructed every day. And then I could also realize that much focus was on paved roads. But I'm sure, and I know that there are other feeder roads or unpaved roads that also have incidents like this. So what are the future directions in this research? So just as I mentioned, I'm in my final year of my master's studies, and I would like to look at the analysis of roadkill pattern in general. We can also look at the impact of road infrastructure on bird populations, also look at the behavioral ecology of birds near these roads. Also look at the role of citizen science in roadkill monitoring. And with this, we need the creation of an app to record roadkills, just as we have all these apps that record live birds as well. And then also importantly to look at genetic consequences of road fragments. So with this, I say animals shape our success and are key to our failure. They changed our history and they will change it again if we do not act now. So with this, I would like to acknowledge the following people. I'm a scholarship. I'm actually on a scholarship here in Hungary. So I would want to acknowledge Tempus Foundation. Also to acknowledge the Institute for Wildlife Management and Nature Conservation, and also to my professor, Dr. Christine Katona, and also my sincere thanks to the Friday for Birds team. Yeah. So thank you very much for listening. And happy holidays and happy Easter to everyone. Thank you.